I never expected to die like this, gasping for breath, my body trembling as the world around me blurred. The pain in my chest felt like 1,000 knives stabbing me at once. My vision darkened, and just before I collapsed, I saw her, Emily, my wife, the woman I loved for 10 years. She stood there, not with fear or concern, but with something worse, annoyance, like I was an inconvenience. And beside her, Mark, my best friend, my brother in everything but blood. A smirk played on his lips as he watched me suffer. That's when I understood. The pills, the ones Emily had given me just minutes ago, urging me to take them for my headaches. She had poisoned me, and Mark knew. I was supposed to die, right here, right now. But I didn't. It started 2 weeks ago, when I noticed Emily acting differently. She had always been distant lately, but this was something else. She laughed at her phone like a teenager in love. She took hours to come back from simple errands. Her kisses, when she even bothered, felt forced. At first, I thought I was overreacting. Maybe work was stressing her out. Maybe she needed space. But when I reached for her phone one night while she was asleep, she woke up like a lightning bolt struck her. "What the hell are you doing, Alex?" she snapped, yanking it from my hands. I blinked, confused. "Jesus, Emily. I was just checking the time." She didn't buy it. "You were snooping, weren't you?" I sat up. "Why would I need to snoop? Do you have something to hide?" She scoffed. "You're being ridiculous." Then she turned her back to me, holding her phone so tight her knuckles turned white. That was the moment my stomach twisted into knots. Something was wrong. I didn't sleep that night. And the next morning, when she kissed me before leaving for a meeting, I made my decision. I was going to find out the truth. And God, I wish I hadn't. 3 days later, I installed a hidden security camera in my car. Emily had been borrowing it lately, claiming hers was acting up. I didn't think much of it until I checked the footage. I should have prepared myself. I should have braced for the worst. But nothing could have prepared me for what I saw. Emily, in my car, with Mark. I watched in horror as she climbed onto his lap, her lips crashing onto his. My best friend. My wife. Their hands roaming, their breathless moans filling my car. The same car I drove to work every damn day. The same car where Emily once told me she loved me. Couldn't breathe. My hands shook so violently I nearly dropped my phone. I rewound the footage, hoping, praying I was imagining things. But no, it was real. It was all real. They were laughing, joking, talking about me. "I don't know why I ever married him," Emily scoffed, running a hand through Mark's hair. "He's so pathetic. So boring." Mark chuckled. "Well, once he's gone, you won't have to worry about him anymore." I frowned. What the hell did that mean? Emily smirked, pulling a small bottle from her purse. She held it up between her fingers, twisting it under the dim underground parking lot lights. "He's been having headaches lately," she purred. "I'll just give him a little help. He'll never see it coming." Mark grinned. "Damn, babe, you're cold." Emily kissed him. "That's why you love me." I dropped my phone. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. My skin turned ice cold. They weren't just betraying me. They were planning to kill me. I sat frozen, my own breath betraying me as I replayed the footage in my mind. My wife, my best friend, in my car, talking about killing me like it was some casual afternoon gossip. I clenched my fists so hard my nails dug into my palms. This wasn't just betrayal. This was war. But I couldn't react yet. Not until I had proof, more than just a video. I needed to know exactly what they were planning. So I played dumb. The next morning, Emily waltzed into the kitchen like nothing had happened. Her long blonde hair was still damp from the shower, her face glowing like she had just slept the best night of her life. I forced a smile. "Morning, babe." She kissed my cheek, the same lips that had just been on Mark. I nearly recoiled but held my ground. "Morning, sweetheart," she purred, pouring me a cup of coffee. "How are you feeling? Any headaches?" My blood went ice cold. There it was, the bait. She was waiting for me to complain, to give her the opportunity to hand me those damn pills. I rubbed my temple, pretending to wince. Yeah, actually a little. Her eyes lit up, but she masked it quickly with a fake look of concern. Oh no, I have something for that. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small bottle of pills. My heart hammered. This was it. She placed them in my hand with that soft, caring expression. The one that used to make me feel loved. Now it made me sick. I pretended to hesitate. Are you sure these are okay to take? I don't usually. She cut me off with a laugh. Of course. You trust me, don't you? Trust. That word made me want to laugh until I lost my mind. I nodded slowly. Yeah, of course. Then, without breaking eye contact, I popped one into my mouth. Emily smiled in satisfaction. Good. You'll feel better in no time. I swallowed, or at least I made it look like I did. The moment she turned away, I slipped the pill under my tongue and pretended to take a sip of coffee. Then, casually, I walked over to the sink, pretending to rinse my cup, and spit the pill out into my sleeve. If she noticed anything, she didn't show it. She just grabbed her purse and checked her phone, probably texting Mark. She glanced up. I have to run a few errands. I'll be back later. Okay? I forced a yawn. Yeah, I think I'll just lie down for a bit. She smiled sweetly. Rest well, baby. And with that, she was gone. I stood there for a long moment, the pill burning in my palm. My own wife had just tried to poison me. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't paranoia. It was real. I needed answers. And there was only one way to get them. An hour later, I was sitting in my car, parked outside a small pharmacy. The pill Emily had given me was now in a tiny plastic bag. Inside, I found an old man behind the counter, gray-haired, round glasses, the kind of guy who had probably worked in medicine longer than I had been alive. I placed the pill on the counter. Can you tell me what this is? He adjusted his glasses, picking it up carefully. You got a prescription for this? No, I lied. A friend gave it to me for headaches. He studied it for a moment, then frowned. This isn't for headaches. A cold chill ran down my spine. What is it? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He hesitated before lowering his voice. This is a high-dose sedative, strong enough to knock someone out for hours. My stomach twisted. And if you took too much? His expression darkened. You wouldn't wake up. I gripped the counter so hard my knuckles turned white. Emily hadn't just tried to drug me. She had planned to put me to sleep, permanently. I swallowed hard. Thanks. I left before he could ask any more questions. My mind was racing. I needed more proof. I needed to catch them in the act. That night I prepared. First, I set up a second hidden camera, this time in our bedroom. If Emily tried anything else, I wanted it on tape. Then I played along. When she got home, I pretended to be groggy, sluggish, just as she probably expected me to be. She smiled at me like a satisfied cat. How are you feeling? She asked, eyes gleaming. I gave a slow nod. Tired. She touched my cheek. It's okay, baby. Just rest. I'll take care of everything. I bet you will, I thought bitterly. She turned off the lights and slid into bed beside me. I kept my breathing even, pretending to drift off. An hour passed. Then two. And then movement. I felt her shift beside me. The faint rustling of fabric. My heart pounded as I forced myself to stay still. Then, the unmistakable sound of her phone unlocking. A message came in. I cracked my eyes open just a fraction. Just enough to see the glow of the screen. It was Mark. Is it done? My body went rigid. Emily smirked, fingers gliding across the screen as she typed back. Not yet. Soon. I bit the inside of my cheek so hard I tasted blood. She was waiting, making sure the drug worked. But I wasn't the one who was about to be caught off guard. No, Emily had no idea she had just sealed her own fate. Lying still in that bed, I had never felt more awake in my life. Every muscle in my body burned to move, to scream, to grab her by the wrist and demand answers. But I couldn't. Not yet. She thought I was sedated. Thought I was slipping away. Let her believe it. Let her think she won. My fingers twitched slightly under the covers, itching to grab my phone. I had to be smart. Had to wait for the perfect moment. Emily stayed on her phone for a few minutes, probably messaging Mark about how her disgusting little plan was going smoothly. Then, satisfied, she rolled over and went to sleep. I didn't. The moment her breathing evened out, I moved, slowly, carefully, reaching under my pillow for my own phone. I had set it to silent earlier, knowing I'd need it. I unlocked it and checked the security feed. The hidden camera I placed in our bedroom had caught everything. The way she checked if I was out, the text she sent Mark, the satisfied smirk on her face. It was enough to prove she was up to something. But I needed more. I needed to hear them say it. The next day, I acted exactly how Emily wanted me to, weak, slow, confused. "Morning, baby," she cooed, placing a hand on my forehead. "You still feeling off?" I nodded sluggishly. "Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with me." She smiled, faking concern. "Maybe it's just stress. Why don't you take another one of those pills? It'll help you rest." There it was. The push. The insistence. This time, I took the pill but faked swallowing it again, slipping it into my sleeve when she turned away. "Thanks," I mumbled. "I think I'll lie down again." She kissed my forehead. "Good. Just rest. I have some errands to run." "Yeah, I bet you do." The moment she left, I was on my feet. I had already gone through her phone before, when she was asleep, but she kept it locked. Face ID, passcode, everything. I needed another way in. Then, an idea hit me. Mark. If Emily was smart enough to keep her phone locked, maybe Mark was stupid enough not to. I drove straight to Mark's apartment. I had a spare key. He had given it to me years ago, back when I still thought we were brothers. I let myself in. The place was exactly what I expected. Messy, unorganized. Empty beer bottles on the counter. He wasn't home, probably at work. Good. I went straight for his desk, searching for his laptop. It didn't take long to find. I opened it, heart pounding. The screen lit up. No password. Idiot. I clicked on his messages and started scrolling. And then there it was. Dozens of texts between him and Emily. "Emily, I gave him another one today. He's getting weaker." Mark, "Good. Once it's done, we can finally be together." Emily, "I can't wait. He's so pathetic. I should have left him years ago." Mark, "Better late than never." Emily, "Yeah, and at least this way we get his money." I gripped the laptop so hard I thought I'd snap it in half. It wasn't just about being together. They were planning to kill me for money. I kept scrolling, my vision blurring with rage. More messages. More plans. Mark talking about how he had researched accidents that wouldn't raise suspicions. Emily asking about what kind of poison would work best. It was all here. All the proof I needed. My blood boiled, but I forced myself to focus. I took pictures of every message. Every disgusting plan. Every betrayal. Then I sent it all to my email. Just in case. And then one final move. I typed out a message from Mark's phone. "Mark, meet me at the underground parking lot tonight. We need to talk. Urgent." I sent it to Emily. She replied instantly. "Emily, okay. What's wrong?" Mark, "Just come alone." I smirked. Now it was my turn to set the trap. That night, I parked my car in the exact same underground lot where Emily and Mark had betrayed me. The same place they had laughed about my death. I positioned my phone, setting it to record. If they were going to confess, I was going to get every damn word of it. Then I waited. Minutes passed. My heart pounded in my ears. Then, footsteps. Emily. She walked in, glancing around. "Mark." I stepped out of the shadows. Guess again. Her entire body stiffened. "Alex." I tilted my head. "Surprised to see me?" She forced a laugh. "What are you doing here?" I took a step closer. "Waiting for my wife. You know, the one who's been plotting to kill me with my best friend." Her face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about." I held up my phone. Pressed play. Her own messages, her own words played back at her. The plans. The poison. The insults. Emily's eyes widened. "Where did you get that?" I took another step forward. "Oh, don't worry. I have plenty more." Enough to make sure you and Mark never see the outside of a prison cell again. She swallowed, eyes darting around like a trapped animal. Alex, baby, this isn't what you think. I barked out a laugh. Oh? Because it looks a hell of a lot like you tried to poison me and take my money. She took a shaky breath. Then suddenly, her expression changed. The fake innocence was gone. Now, she looked at me with pure, cold hatred. You don't have proof of anything. Her voice was sharp, venomous. I smirked. You sure about that? And right then, before she could react, I reached into my pocket, pulled out my second phone, and held up the screen. It was recording, live streaming, to my lawyer, to the police, to everyone. Emily's face drained of color. She opened her mouth, then stopped. Checkmate. Emily's face twisted as she realized she was cornered. No more lies, no more fake tears, just raw, seething anger. You bastard! She spat, her voice dripping with venom. You set me up. I let out a slow, satisfied breath. Funny, isn't it? The liar getting played for once. She took a step forward like she actually thought she could intimidate me. You have no idea what you're doing, Alex. You think this little stunt is going to save you. I scoffed. Save me? Emily, I was never the one in danger. You were. From the moment you decided to betray me, from the moment you and Mark plotted to kill me, your fate was sealed. I just made sure you'd live long enough to face the consequences. She clenched her fists. No one's going to believe you. I raised an eyebrow. Really? Because, sweetheart, this whole thing is being streamed. Right now. Every word you just said? It's all on record. Her eyes darted to the phone in my hand, the screen still glowing with the call in progress. I could practically see the gears turning in her head. Then something changed. The panic disappeared. The fear melted away, and she smiled. A slow, wicked smile that made my stomach twist. You think you're so smart, don't you? She murmured, tilting her head. But you forgot one thing. I narrowed my eyes. Oh yeah? And what's that? Suddenly, before I could react, she lunged. Her nails raked across my arm as she snatched the phone from my hand and hurled it across the parking lot. It smashed against the concrete, the screen flickering before going dark. Oops, she whispered, her eyes gleaming with triumph. I stared at the broken phone, my pulse hammering. Then I laughed. Emily's smile faltered. You think I only had one phone streaming? I smirked, pulling another from my jacket pocket. Her face twisted in pure rage. You son of a... I didn't let her finish. Save it. You lost, Emily. She looked like she wanted to rip my throat out. Instead, she turned on her heel and stormed toward her car. This isn't over, she hissed over her shoulder. I didn't stop her. I didn't need to, because I wasn't the only one who had been watching. The moment Emily peeled out of the parking lot, I dialed the police. I gave them everything, the texts, the footage, the plan to poison me. I laid it all out, making sure they knew exactly what kind of monster they were dealing with. And then I waited. An hour later, I got the call. They had picked up Emily at home. Mark, on the other hand, was nowhere to be found. For now. The next day, I went back to my house. Not because I wanted to see the place where my wife had pretended to love me, but because I needed to gather what was mine. When I walked inside, it felt different. The walls felt hollow, the air stale. This wasn't my home anymore. I went straight to the bedroom and started packing my things. I wasn't staying another second in a place filled with so many lies. As I shoved the last of my clothes into a suitcase, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You think this is over? I froze. Mark. Another message came through. You ruined everything. But don't worry. I'll see you soon. I clenched my jaw, my fingers tightening around the phone. He was still out there. And he wasn't done. Good. Because neither was I. I stared at the message, my grip tightening around the phone. My heart should have been pounding, but it wasn't. I wasn't scared. I was pissed. Mark was still out there, and now he was making threats. Coward. He didn't have the guts to face me like a man, so he hid behind anonymous messages, probably thinking he could still control the game. Not this time. I grabbed my suitcase and walked out, leaving behind the house that used to be mine. The house where I'd built a life with a woman who had been plotting my death. There was nothing left for me here. I drove straight to a motel on the other side of town. Somewhere discreet. No way was I staying anywhere predictable, not with Mark lurking in the shadows. The second I checked in, I opened my laptop. I wasn't going to wait for Mark to make a move. I was going to find him first. It didn't take long. Idiots like him always think they're smarter than they are. I had access to his emails from the laptop I hacked. The fool had been booking hotel rooms under his own name, using the same credit card for everything. Pathetic. I smirked. He was close, just a few miles away, and he had no idea I was coming. The hotel was a rundown place, the kind of dump where people went to disappear. Fitting. I parked a few blocks away, keeping my head low as I approached the building. Room 207. That was where he was hiding. I took the stairs 2 at a time, my blood boiling hotter with every step. When I reached the door, I didn't hesitate. I pounded my fist against it. Hard. Silence. Then movement inside. Who is it? Mark's voice was cautious. Open the damn door, I growled. A pause. Then the lock clicked. The door cracked open, just enough for him to peek out. His eyes widened when he saw me. Alex! I didn't let him finish. I slammed the door open, shoving him back so hard he stumbled and hit the floor. He scrambled to his feet, hands raised. Wait, man. Let's talk about this. I grabbed his collar and threw him against the wall. Talk? You want to talk now? After you tried to kill me? It wasn't like that, he gasped. Emily, she said it was just a scare tactic, that we weren't actually gonna. Punched him. Hard. He crumpled to the ground, groaning. Jesus, Alex. I crouched down, grabbing his shirt and yanking him up. You were my best friend, I hissed. I trusted you, and you were screwing my wife in my car while planning my death. His eyes darted around, looking for a way out. It was her idea. She said she wanted to be with me, said she was tired of you. I punched him again, sending him sprawling. This time he didn't get up. I stood over him, breathing heavily. You're pathetic, I muttered. Blood trickled from his nose as he coughed, clutching his ribs. Please, man, I messed up. I get it. But, look, let me disappear. Okay? I'll leave town. I'll never bother you again. I shook my head. No, you don't get to walk away from this. I pulled out my phone and dialed the police. Yeah, I said when they answered. I've got some information about an attempted murder. You might want to send a unit to the Lakeview Motel. Room 207. Mark's face drained of color. Alex, wait. I hung up. Enjoy prison, Mark. He tried to lunge for me, but he was weak, too slow. I stepped back, watching as he collapsed to his knees. This was over. By the time the sirens echoed in the distance, I was already gone. I walked out of that motel without looking back, my pulse steady. Mark was finished. By the time the cops got there, he'd be too busy begging for a deal to be a problem anymore. But there was still one loose end left. Emily. She was in custody, but I knew her too well. She wasn't the type to sit quietly and accept her fate. She'd find a way to twist the story, cry to the right people, and slither her way out. I wasn't going to let that happen. I drove straight to my lawyer's office. It was late, but he owed me favors. Alex, he said when I walked in, looking tired but alert. I saw the live stream. That was intense. I sat down across from him. I need to make sure Emily doesn't get away with this. He nodded. She's already in custody, but you're right. She'll try to spin it. Luckily, you have overwhelming evidence. Between the texts, the security footage, and the recorded confession, she's done. I leaned forward. That's not enough. I want her buried. I want every single one of her dirty secrets exposed. He raised an eyebrow. You have more. I smirked. A lot more. Emily had spent years being reckless, thinking she was untouchable. I had ignored the signs, too blind to see the monster she really was. But now I was seeing everything clearly. I pulled out my phone and slid it across the desk. Check the email I just sent you. Bank statements, hidden accounts, fraud. She's been siphoning money from my business for years. I was too stupid to notice before, but now she's screwed. He skimmed through the files, his eyes widening. Holy, Alex, this isn't just bad. This is federal-level fraud. If we move fast, we can make sure she never sees the outside of a cell again. Do it, I said without hesitation. He nodded, already picking up the phone. I sat back, exhaling slowly. Emily thought she could destroy me, but I was the one who was going to destroy her. The next morning, I got the call. Emily had been officially charged with attempted murder, conspiracy, and financial fraud. The evidence was airtight. No amount of manipulation could save her now. I could almost hear her screaming from her cell. Mark, on the other hand, had folded the moment they got him in an interrogation room. He ratted Emily out in exchange for a lesser sentence, crying about how she had been the mastermind. Pathetic. Not that it mattered. They were both done. But as I stood in my motel room, staring out the window, I realized something. I won. I had beaten them. I had survived. So why didn't I feel better? That evening, I went back to the underground parking lot. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to see it one last time. The place where it all started. I stood there, staring at the spot where my car had been that night. I could still see it in my mind. Emily and Mark tangled together, laughing, mocking me. The ultimate betrayal. But now they were gone, and I was still here. The weight on my chest felt lighter. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. I took a deep breath, exhaled, and walked away. For good. I walked away from the parking lot, the familiar weight of my past finally lifting. The night was quiet, peaceful in a way I hadn't experienced in what felt like forever. The stars were out, and for the first time they didn't feel distant. They felt like a reminder that the world was bigger than my anger, bigger than my betrayal. I didn't have a plan anymore. The life I'd built with Emily and Mark was gone. It was as if the person I was before all this had died, and I was standing in the ashes of the life I thought I knew. I had nothing to prove, nothing to fight for anymore. The next few days passed in a blur of legal appointments, paperwork, and phone calls. My lawyer was efficient, relentless in making sure that everything was tied up. Emily and Mark were in custody, facing serious charges. Emily's trial was scheduled to begin soon, but the media had already picked up the story. It wasn't long before people started whispering about my near-death experience, about the man who survived his wife and best friend's betrayal. But none of that mattered to me. It was just noise, static. I was done with it. I'd spent so many years blinded by love and friendship that I hadn't realized how much of myself I'd lost in the process. The person I used to be, before Emily and Mark, was buried somewhere deep inside, a distant memory that felt like someone else's life. So I took a week off, a week to just breathe, to figure out who I was now and where I was going. It was a luxury I'd never allowed myself before, but now I had nothing holding me back. I rented a small cabin up in the mountains, far away from everything. No phone, no distractions, just me and the world. I spent the first few days sitting on the porch, staring at the mountains, listening to the rustle of the trees in the wind. I went for long walks, just letting my mind wander, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel a constant knot of tension in my chest. It was liberating in a way I hadn't expected. I hadn't realized how suffocating my life had become until I was free of it. After a few days of silence, I started to think about what came next. What kind of person did I want to be? I couldn't stay in hiding forever. But the idea of going back to a normal life, of slipping back into the monotony I had lived for so long, felt suffocating again. That's when it hit me. I didn't want to go back. I wanted to start over. Completely. I sold my house, packed up everything I owned and moved. I sold my business, even. I didn't want any reminders of the past to hold me down. I was starting fresh, and that meant cutting ties with everything, even the life I had built. The next year was a blur of new beginnings. I moved to a small town by the coast, somewhere quiet, somewhere I could rebuild, far from the shadows of my past. I started doing what I'd always wanted to do but never had the time for, writing. It was something I'd never even considered when I was tied up in my marriage and business. But now, with everything stripped away, it felt like the only thing that made sense. First, it was hard. The blank page was intimidating, and there were days when the words just wouldn't come. But little by little, I found my rhythm. I wrote about everything. My experiences, my thoughts, the lessons I'd learned in a way I'd never been able to articulate before. Months passed. I found peace in the small things. The sound of the ocean, the quiet mornings, and the satisfaction of creating something that was entirely mine. The past no longer had a grip on me. It had been a chapter in my life, a painful and devastating one, but just that, a chapter. And then, just as I had started to make a life for myself, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my lawyer. "It's over. Emily's trial is set. She's pleading guilty to the charges against her. Mark's looking at a much lighter sentence, but he's cooperating. He's going to try to strike a deal." I stared at the message for a long time, the words sinking in. It had been months since I'd thought about them, since I'd let their betrayal occupy any space in my mind. But now it felt like the final chapter was about to close. Emily was going to face the consequences for what she'd done. Mark, too, was going to pay for his part. But the weight of it all didn't hit me the way I thought it would. I wasn't angry anymore. There was no satisfaction in their downfall. There was just silence. I left the phone on the counter and stepped outside, standing on the porch as the evening fog rolled in from the ocean. For the first time in months, I felt the urge to look back. Not with anger or regret, but with understanding. It was strange, this feeling of detachment, as if I had watched everything unfold from a distance, as if none of it had ever truly belonged to me. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting the sky in shades of orange and purple. I felt the wind on my face, and for a fleeting moment, I allowed myself to feel the weight of the years I'd spent under their thumb. The hurt, the anger, the betrayal, it was all still there, buried deep within me. But it didn't control me anymore. I had taken control. The next morning, I sat down at my desk and opened a new document. My fingers hovered over the keys for a moment. Then I began to write. This story, my story, needed to be told. Not just as a way to let go, but as a way to remind myself that I had survived. That I had been through the worst and had come out the other side stronger, not weaker. There was a knock at the door. I looked up, surprised. I wasn't expecting anyone. I hadn't even told anyone where I was staying. I stood up, walking to the door, my curiosity piqued. When I opened it, I was met with a familiar face. It was Claire, my old friend from college, the one I hadn't spoken to in years. Her eyes were wide with shock. "Alex?" she asked, almost disbelieving. "Is it really you?" I blinked, taken aback. "Claire? What are you doing here?" She took a step forward, a hesitant smile on her face. "I've been looking for you," she said. "After everything that happened with Emily, I couldn't stop thinking about you. I needed to know you were okay." I smiled, a little stunned by the unexpected visit. "I'm doing fine. Better than fine, actually. I've been getting my life back together." Claire's expression softened. "I'm so glad to hear that. I know it's been a long time, but I've missed you, Alex." For a moment, we just stood there, the silence comfortable between us. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something stir inside me. Something I hadn't felt in ages. Hope. Maybe this was the next chapter. Maybe it wasn't about forgetting everything that happened, but about moving forward. It had taken time, so much time, to heal. But now, with Claire standing there, I realized that I wasn't done living yet. "I've missed you too," I said, a smile tugging at my lips. "Maybe we should catch up."